talked about how good is the first round.
How many first-round picks are in this draft?
Do we have on our board?
Yes.
We're going to be somewhere between, 14 and 16, somewhere in there.
Is that a normal number?
So it's lower than normal.
Yeah, it is. It's usually 17, 18, 19. This year it's 13, 14, 15. So the Cowboys are telling you we'd like to move up. But what that tells you is they want to get in the top 14 because they see those as first-round players. They need a receiver and a tackle. Very good drafts for both. So I don't think they're going to get the first or second best wide receiver. But Dallas is telling you, we would love, is Charles Cross, I don't think he'll be available. I think Giants will pick him up. Will Charles Cross be available at the 13th pick? Now, Houston, I just looked this up this morning. Houston has the 13th pick. They're looking to move down. So one's in the NFC, one's in the AFC. I could see the Cowboys going to the Houston Texans at 13. They're in a rebuild and saying, hey, we'll give you this, we'll give you that. Give us your 13th pick. And you can either get like the number 2 or 3 receiver or the number 3 or 4 tackle. And the Cowboys need both, but really need a tackle. They've been leaning on Tyron Smith at left tackle for years, and he's not going to give you a full schedule. So, and Jerry Jones, by the way, in a starless draft, would love to be the talk of the draft. If he's the only team moving up, he would love that. It's very on brand. One of my criticisms through the years on the Cowboys has been, I think they're too insular. They like their picks too much. I think if you look at the best teams in the league, they draft well. Green Bay drafts well. San Francisco, the Rams draft well. Baltimore drafts well. Steelers draft well. But they're always willing to go out on the market. Steelers, let's go get Minkah Fitzpatrick. Let's go get Mitch Trubisky. They'll acknowledge we don't do everything. Dallas tends to love themselves and love their picks. And so I think it's been a little bit of a problem. I think you want some external voices. But I think it validates Jerry. It validates the family. And, so that's what they do. I don't love that. Rams have acknowledged, the quarterback we drafted, Jared Goff, we're paying him too much. Let's give up a bunch of picks and money for Matt Stafford. Jalen Ramsey's better than any corner we have. Let's go get it. Bobby Wagner, we're kind of weak at linebacker. Our picks have been kind of middling. Let's go get him. That's the way to do it to me. Draft well and acknowledge we're not experts. Some guys, we missed on some positions. Let's go fill them. So we'll see what they do. It would be very on brand. I would say that if the Cowboys moved up and some of this stuff, there's another team out there that I think is actually kind of interesting. And they're not a good team, and they're never interesting, the Detroit Lions. So I've never in my life thought, I'm fascinated with the Detroit Lions. And they were only 3-13 last year, but I think they won in their last 6 games, they went 3-3. And as we said, they outplayed the Rams for a first half. They outplayed Baltimore. They were about as compelling as a 3-win team can be. And they were 3-14 or whatever their record was. They won 3 of their last 6. So for me, they've actually in the last couple of years done a really good job in the draft. They got a great tight end from Iowa, great left tackle, DeAndre Swift, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Jared Goff's fine. You go win games with Jared Goff if you protect him. I would go all defense. So they have the number 2 pick in the draft. I think they also have the last pick in the first round. So if I was Detroit, and they have a pretty decent second round pick at the top. If I was Detroit, I would just go edge, corner, linebacker. I would go all defense. So Detroit's a team at the number 2 spot. They would love to get Aiden Hutchinson from Michigan. So it's very possible Detroit is the story of the night if the Michigan boy goes to the Detroit Lions. That would be wonderful for their brand. And he's a really good player. So Detroit has not owned a lot of drafts in my lifetime. The Matt Stafford draft, they were the story of the first round. I think if Hutchinson drops to number 2, they've done very well. Penei Sewell was a great pick last year. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 2 Pac-12 guys, excellent picks. They got the tight end running back too. So it's time to fix the defense. They gave up 69 touchdown passes. They were in shootouts all year. They outplayed the Rams and the Ravens and lost because they just couldn't make stops. So the Dan Campbell stuff, a little cheesy. It's not my cup of tea, but it was kind of interesting. So the Jets could win the night if they make the deal with Debo. The Cowboys could win the night if they move up. And I think Detroit could if Hutchinson falls to them. And tomorrow morning, we're saying like, hey, the Detroit Lions, they crushed it. So Kurt Warner, Pro Football Hall of Famer, you know his story. They just made a movie on the mic. Boy, the Trayvon Walker thing, I guess they say he could be number 1-year starter, not a true edge. I mean, hey, again, it's a trait thing. I mean, if you ran the team, what would you do? Would you take the sure bet Hutchinson, who's been wildly productive for years? He's a true edge. Or would you take the Georgia kid? What would you do?
Yeah, I don't like unknowns when I have the first pick, Colin. And look, Trayvon Walker is a fantastic athlete. I think there's a lot of promise for what he's going to be, and I get excited about that, and that's why I have him as my 6th overall player. But Aiden Hutchinson, I've just seen it. I know what I'm buying. I'm comfortable with that with the first overall selection in this draft. I think he's the best player. So to me, uncertainty is not something I'm a fan of when you have the first overall pick.
Now, I don't do mock drafts. I'm not going to sign up to be wrong 32 times. We know desperation matters. I'll just throw a scenario at you.
Yeah.
Carolina's got, like Steve Ballmer, the richest owner. He's an impatient man, and Matt Rule's off back-to-back like 5-win seasons. Darnold's not the long-term answer. And my takeaway is Arizona whiffed on a quarterback. The next year they went and got another quarterback. Why not with that 6th pick in a draft where there are no guarantees? Why not just take Malik Willis and just say, hey, he can, he moves like Darnold. We're going to sort of implement, incorporate him in the offense. Would you consider that as a former scout, even though you have him like deep first round? Why not roll the dice on the most important position? Is it crazy?
No, it's not crazy, and I wouldn't be totally shocked if that's what ended up happening tonight. But to me, I have him in the early 20s on my list. The problem with that theory, though, Colin, is that I don't know that Malik Willis is going to be ready to play right away. So a year from now, you could be in that situation of not knowing what you have in Malik Willis and then wondering, wait, do I need to go back into this well again? I don't even know what I have in the guy I just took. And there's a lot of other holes on this roster, particularly at the tackle position. So I think those are the two schools of thought. Do you take a tackle and try and build up this team knowing your quarterback's probably not coming until next year? Or do you take another bite at the apple and just throw another quarterback into the mix? I don't know. It'd be tough for me knowing I'm going to take a quarterback I don't think sees the field much this year.
It's interesting. I had said this earlier. The Jets want Debo, and they'd probably have to give up their number 10 pick and their number 38 pick and maybe a pick next year. If you believed Trey Lance could play, if you really strongly believed in it, and you got that 10th pick, you could get, let's say, a Drake London.
Yeah.
And if you believe Trey can play, and you're going to move and have cap flexibility if you don't have Debo, and you love your coach, you like your GM, you like your roster a lot, and Seattle's not going to be the same team for the next year or two in the division. So it's a 3-team race, no longer. I don't think it's the best division in football anymore. I think AFC West probably is. So let's talk about this. If you got that 10 pick Drake London, now I'm not saying he's Debo Samuel, but do you think he's the kind of player, as a former scout for 3 teams, that with a great coach who makes almost everything work, that Drake London could be productive as a rookie?
Oh, I think he's going to be productive as a rookie. I think whether or not he goes to the Jets, or if something happened with that trade and he ended up in San Francisco, I think he's going to be a high volume guy. He's going to be a big slot. You mentioned kind of the Debo success that he had. I mean, to me, I'm going to use him exactly like the Saints use Michael Thomas when he's healthy. Let him just beat up on people inside the slot. The challenge for me, if I'm San Francisco in that scenario, though, Colin, is it's a lot easier to trade the Tyreek Hills and the Devontae Adams of the world when you've got Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes, established quarterbacks. Usually with young quarterbacks, especially when we're getting ready to make their first starts in this league, I want to surround them with veteran help. I wouldn't want to put him out there with a bunch of other young football players.
Well, maybe that's why they're keeping Garoppolo, by the way. They'd feel better with Garoppolo, Drake London, Brandon Ayuk, Elijah Mitchell, George Kittle. I still like their roster a lot. The Cowboys are reportedly one of the teams looking to move up. So we kind of know what they want. They love another receiver, but they really need an offensive tackle. So let's say they said yesterday they want to move up top 14. That means they have 14 players they see as a first-round grade. That's probably what that means. if the Cowboys got a Charles Cross or like the second or third best tackle, would you feel good about that? Is that worth moving up? You got Dak now. Dak needs protect. He's always been better when Tyron Smith, and Tyron now is old. You lost Lyle Collins, Daniel. You're not getting 17 games from Tyron. Are these tackles, these first three tackles, which I think Dallas would go after, are they good enough to come, play, and be reliable year one protecting Dak?
Well, I think the first two for sure, and they're not going to be able to get in range to get Aquanu or Neal, whatever order you want to put those guys in. Cross is a solid player. To me, he's kind of in that range. If you want to move up a little bit for him, I think he can get out there and play. He's going to be better in pass pro than he is in the run game initially. But he's a true left tackle. My concern with him is he going to be able to hold up on the right side, and be ready to play right away. So the first two would be slam dunks, Colin. You can be really aggressive and go up and get them. And Cross would start for him. He'd start at right tackle. I just think long-term wise, he's going to be more comfortable, more natural on the other side.
Listen, we're going to have a bust in the top 10. We're probably going to have 4, 5, 6, or 7 in the first rounds, the way it works. Derek Stingley, unbelievable as a freshman, never been the same player, would scare me to death. What do I make of him? What do you make of him? Because, boy, he is long. And as a freshman, I can remember saying this on the air as a freshman. I'm like, I think he'd be a top 10 corner in the NFL as a sophomore at LSU. Like, I thought he was like, it was like Jalen Ramsey, or it was like, it's like Jamar Chase. You were watching an NFL player.